programımızda kentsel hareketlilik projelerinde yatırım ve fizibilite süreçlerine dair küresel bir perspektif sunacak konuşmasıyla Ulf Larsson'ı davet ediyoruz. Kendisi WSP Küresel Demiryolu ve Ulaşım Teknik Direktörü, aynı zamanda Birleşmiş Milletler Enerji Dönüşümü için Mühendisler Konseyi üyesi. Ulf, the floor is yours.
Teşekkür Dila. Ve herkese oladan sandralar. Ben Ulf Larsson ve İngilizceye konuşacağım. So I will share my screen to begin with. And while I do that, I would like to say that I'm very excited about having this opportunity to present at this occasion. So please let me know when you start to see my screen. It's a bit slow because I'm sitting from Sweden doing this, and it might be a little bit slow coming up. So
We can see right now. Mm-hmm.
You can see it right now. Good. So I will be talking a bit about, I'll give you a global perspective on urban mobility and look at what the criteria for investment and the feasibility of mobility projects from a global perspective. Now, as I think Dila said, I represent WSP, and I won't talk very much about my company, but we say that we are visionaries and that we are future ready, and I will come back to that a little bit. But before that, I thought I'll say a few words about myself. Starting on the Facebook side, which is my private side, I have a family of many women, which is actually something that has formed my view of the world, I think, and the way I look at mobility and other things. I am born and bred in Sweden, but I do count 4 other countries as my home countries, being England, where I studied to take my master's in electrical engineering, and the US, where I've started my working career. I worked a couple of years there. Turkey, definitely, because I had 6 years working in Turkey. And then lately, the last 4 years, I've been mostly in New Zealand. My career started in 1989, delivering in the industry, supply industry, supplying locomotives to the United States, and then metro trains to Stockholm. And then in 1994 to 2000, I was the project manager for the Izmir metro project, the first line that is from Uçyol to Bornova, which was a very exciting period of my life. And since then, I've basically been a management consultant for the last 25 years, working on the client side in projects all over the world, in different parts of the world. 1 year ago, I joined the Council of Engineers for the Energy Transition, which is an independent advisory to the UN Secretary General. And that's where I met with Selen, who invited me to come to this meeting, and I'm very happy about that. So let's get started on the presentation. So quick overview, I will be starting with looking at global trends that shape communities and advance humanity. Then I will give a couple of case studies, international case studies. I will look into Istanbul and make a hypothetical case on what could be done in Istanbul. And then there will be some conclusions. So Future Ready, which is the WSP branded program, is about understanding and acting on global trends to shape communities and advance humanity. So as an example, we had a key role in the Bosphorus tunnel in Istanbul, in the design of that one, which had a major impact and shortened the travel time by 6 times. It was delivered through a public-private partnership, which is similar to the Izmir project that I talked about, which was at that time we called it Design, Build, Operate, Transfer, and Finance. Both of these mean that you have a very good incentive for the private party to finish on time and on budget, which I think was an explanation for both of these projects being largely success stories. And I'll come back to that a little bit later. So what is Future Ready? It's a program for us to design for today, but build resilience for tomorrow. So we look at 4 thematic themes. Climate trends is the first theme. So we're definitely seeing hotter and drier summers. I'm sitting here in Stockholm, or just outside Stockholm, and we've had 30 degrees for the last week, and that's in the shade, so it's very warm here. And last year was the hottest on record, with an area the size of Germany being lost to wildfires. This is a thing that means GDP loss in the end, and also of course threatens life. Society trends. So while there are efforts to address the climate change, they are overshadowed currently by geopolitical tensions, economic crisis, tariffs, wars, which in turn actually hinder the progress to resolve these very issues. Technology trends. 72% of businesses are now being impacted by AI, and that, together with Internet of Things and smart cities, is driving internet growth, which will require major investments in data infrastructure. Resource trends. So since the 1969 or 70s, we've seen a major reduction in biodiversity, 69%. And some people say that this is actually something that is worse than the climate change that we're seeing. So summarizing 12 of these global trends in the 4 thematic areas: climate, society, technology, and resource. We need to design to reach the net zero target of 2050, while at the same time taking into account that we'll have sea level rise and more extreme weather coming. We know in the society that we get an older population, but they're not really not seen as that old, and they're very active, and they're placing special requirements on infrastructure and transportation, such as increasing neurodiversity issues. And in technology, we need to get ready to how we will work and live in an AI world where all the transport is electric, which in itself means that the transport sector is more vulnerable to cyber and other security risks. On the resource side, we need to, and I have to move this so that I can see the text here. We need to build flexible places that are easy to refurbish rather than having to rebuild. What does this mean, and how does this translate to public transport? So in the climate space, we're seeing electrification of all the vehicle fleets, going to battery and hydrogen-driven fleets, which means that we're also seeing infrastructure for charging of EVs, and at the other end, designing for extreme weather. For society, if we want to get more people to go on public transport, we will also see higher service expectations. We also see a growth of leisure travel. There's a health trend generally, and people being more health conscious, active mode, and wanting to bring their bicycles on the trains, for instance. Health is also about air quality. With more elderly people, we'll see increased disabilities that we need to account for on a massive scale compared to today. In technology, automation is coming to all sorts of systems, in metros, in buses, everywhere. Another trend is looking at the journey from end to end, so that you have mobility as a service. You buy one ticket for all your mobility. That is also seen as you have all these multiple modes of transportation that are integrated into a transport network. And I'll come back to that a little bit, because that I think is very important. With all this, you have a lot of more digital controlled things, which means you're introducing new cyber risks. You can suddenly control if it's automated, for instance, you can control that from outside if you if you have a cyber attack. We're also seeing that with greater data, more sensors, we can monitor the infrastructure and the condition of the infrastructure assets. In terms of resources for design, we need to design more flexible modular components so that we can easily upgrade without having to replace the whole train, for instance, or using reused sleepers when we are renovating the infrastructure. Biofuels is probably a stepping stone for public transport. As I said on the first box on the upper left, we'll see the fleets going to electric and hydrogen. Now, biofuels are very important for aviation to meet net zero. So it's a good thing that the rest of the public transport probably won't need biofuels in the same to the same degree. So three examples, global examples of these, what can be done. I have to move this thing away there. There you go. So starting with a light rail transit system in An Kheng in Taiwan. What they have done, they have recognized that they've had a problem with security for women. So they've designed a system where they have specific platform for women to take trains at night. They also have installed safety system to ensure the safety of female passengers during nighttime travel. In the Transbay crossing in San Francisco, when they're now building new lines, they are looking at using lower embodied carbon materials, so materials like green steel, green concrete to a larger extent when they're refurbishing. They're also using vehicle-to-grid technology, which means that they're using the fleet batteries, battery-driven fleets, as part of the national electrical grid, so that they get stability from that. In the UK, they're building a high-speed line 2, and in that one, and I'll have to move this one again. They have a net zero regulation for the operational energy, and that they will have no net loss of biodiversity. They're also having increasing material efficiency, and they're 95% beneficial reuse of site excavations. So this is coming from looking at those trends and identifying what are the issues for this specific project. The examples that I gave in the previous slides needs to be adopted to the specific situation that you have, and I'll come back to that when we come to Istanbul. But before that, so this was all about sort of global mobility trends that we see in general. When we deliver projects, there are also the commercial trends that are different in different parts of the world, and I've tried to define these in these 4 stages of the life cycle of a metro system or any mobility system, from feasibility, delivery, operations to renewals. And then when I actually made this, I realized I had to make a special case for renewals of rolling stock or maintenance of rolling stock and infrastructure, which are a little bit different. And don't worry, when you see this massive text, I'm not going to go through it in detail. I will focus on the feasibility part, but just a few words on the other phases. So in delivery, we're seeing that the delivery models are sort of cyclic, but they're not in sync in the whole world. So in the global south, there we see a trend from government to government fund run projects to alliancing and PPPs. And in the US, they're moving from PPPs to alliancing, and in other parts of the world, we're moving from alliancing to PPP. Whereas in Europe, it's very much traditional buying bits and pieces by the client. In operations, we have seen a trend previously going from state-run to PPPs or tendered operations. So you get international competition who's going to be the operator, and all the way to open access, as in Sweden, where anyone can start a rail company and compete on the rail. Whereas in Japan, which is one of the foremost rail markets in the world, they have vertical integration. So you have a private operator also taking care of the infrastructure. In maintenance renewals on infrastructure, we have seen a trend for the last 20, 30 years to go from a state of repairs to planned maintenance, cyclic planned maintenance. And the next step is condition-based and predictive asset management based in performance-based contracts. As I mentioned before, in the high-speed 2 in the UK, we're seeing recycling and reuse and recover of materials. Oh, sorry. So I'm going to focus now a little bit more on the feasibility and business case. And I have worked in many of these different regions around the world and seen that they're using some of the same analysis, but the one that I think to me sticks out as one of the better ones is the 5 better business case model that is widely used in the Commonwealth world. And I've been working in New Zealand and Australia lately. And why is that good? Well, when you have an investment in global mobility, any sort of investment, so I said the 5 business case, well, as the name suggests, it has 5 cases. Normally, very often, we just look at the case, strategic case, the case for change. Is there a case to change? And we also look at value for money, so the economic case. What this brings is 3 other cases: commercial case, which shows if it's technically and economically feasible, and financial case shows that it's affordable, and management case, is it deliverable? So the strategic case is about, does it align with national, regional, or city level goals? Does it support climate action plans? Is it justified by the passenger demand forecasts or the urban density growth trends? At this early stage, we also look at engaging stakeholders, the communities, have consultations early, make sure that the legal and regulatory compliance is in place before we start investing too much money. The strategic case is often quite a light touch, whereas the economic case, we go into more detailed analysis. So cost-benefit analysis, value for money analysis, social impacts, how does it impact equity, job creation, and environmental sustainability? So these are more costly analyses. And when we come to commercial case, it's even more so. We now look at technical feasibility. So we often do conceptual design. We look at the complexity of the investment, how it integrates with existing infrastructure. Technology readiness, so going back to the trends that I talked about before: automation, electrification, cybersecurity. We also look at the risk in construction operations, regulatory and climate risks at this stage. Then in the financial case, we look at where does money come from, and can we afford this? It might be value for money, but do we have the money to actually invest in this? And in the management case, we look at the delivery model. So should it be PPP or should it be other models? Now, what this does is that it gives you a 360 degree on the investment, rather than just looking at the case for change and the value for money. If you look at the other parts, and they're not independent, and you have an iteration between these, but it gives you a 360 degree view on your investment, which I think is very helpful, and probably saves a lot of money in the end when you have de-risked the project. So then going into the Istanbul case study, and please forgive me that this is very hypothetical, but I thought I'll try to come with something punchy at the end of this. So already 100 years ago, Kemal Atatürk said that the welfare, the economic welfare of the nation is directly proportional to the condition of the transport system, which was mainly reiterated 100 years later in the 50-year Transport and Logistics Master Plan by the Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure. I also had the opportunity to look at the Smart City Strategic Plan for Istanbul for 2030, which is identifying 3 main strategic goals: improving transport coordination and public transport, supporting sustainable modes of transport, and reducing traffic congestion. Now, my reflection on this is that, yes, transportation is a mobility system, so all the modes come together as a mobility system, but also that they're integrated with urban development. They go hand in hand with development of the city. Supporting sustainable modes of transport. For this, in my mind, public transport is the capacity backbone, and active modes is for first and last mile mobility. Reducing traffic congestion. Well, there is a simple fact: build more roads and there will be more cars. That's very simple. And we saw that definitely with the Bosphorus Tunnel, that I was very proud that my company has been involved in. I would be even more proud when we come to the next suggested ideas I have, because I think that congestion can only be mitigated by penalizing road transport. So having congestion charging and limiting parking in the center of the city, and use that funding to improve public transport and active modes. This is exactly what has been done in Stockholm over the last 2 decades, where we introduced congestion charging and we have limited city parking, and we're using it to build more metro and improving for cycle lanes, for instance. Now, so the Istanbul case. So Istanbul, with 17 million people, it's the 6th most congested city in the world, with more than 5.5 million cars. And since in the last 2 decades, the road mobility has tripled, whereas only 28% of the trips are made by public transport. And the public transport system is heavily burdened as it is, and it will be the burden will increase over time. And the existing transfers between the different modes of transportation are inadequate, and they require quite long walking distances. This is where the idea comes in. So building sort of an equivalent of the Bosphorus Tunnel, but with a high capacity, high speed metro line connecting the 2 sides of the city on the east-west axis, and integrating at each station with the other modes of transportation. This would make, I think, Istanbul a global mobility icon, which I would be very proud to be part of. So before I conclude, I can't have a presentation without doing some promotion for rail, which is, I think we need to shift to rail, because regardless of the other modes of transportation being electrified and going to net zero, electricity will be a scarcity, and trains are so much more energy efficient than the other modes of transportation, by sometimes up to 5 to 9 times more energy efficient, and more space efficient, and very good on high speed. So we need to shift to rail in time before we have too much of these climate changes taking the roads and the rail. With that, I conclude, and what I would like to remind you of is when you're making decisions on investment, the case for change is often there, and value for money can easily be proven, but don't forget technical feasibility, affordability, and deliverability. Remember that transportation is a mobility system made up of all the modes of transportation, and it's integrated with urban development. Public transport should be the capacity backbone, and active modes used for first and last mile mobility. And the final thing that I want to say is that the greenest asset is the one that already exists. So maintain the systems that you already have. Thank you very much, and I encourage you to ask questions once we come to the Q&A session. Thank you very much.
Çok teşekkür ederiz Ulf Larsson'a bu değerli, kıymetli ve gerçekten de bu fizibilite boyutunu işte neden yapıyoruz, kimler için ve nasıl yapıyoruzu yani çok boyutlu bir şekilde ele aldığı için tekrardan çok teşekkür ediyoruz.